Lovely is thy dwelling place. That song the choir has been working on in preparation for Carrie Parker's service, which was yesterday here at the church. And our flowers on the communion table are also from her service and a gift for us today from her family. Her daughter Julie's here. Thank you, Julie. And I ask that we continue to hold Julie and all of Carrie's family. Many of you would call yourself her family as well in our prayers. Earlier this month, someone sent me a video, and it was called Cruel Musical Chairs, or Why is Rent So High? Now, you remember musical chairs, right? Show of hands, everybody remember musical chairs? Maybe some people didn't play musical chairs. Everyone, is walking around this empty circle of chairs, and there's one less chair than there are people. So depending on the group you were playing with, this could be a really fun game or it could be a bit dangerous. And when the music stops, you've got to find your chair and sit down. And if you didn't find a chair, what happens? You were out. You just had to be quick to win the game, right? So imagine that there are 2 houses and 3 families playing. The music stops, and the wealthiest family, they get their choice of the houses. And then the middle income family, they get the next choice. And then what happens? One family doesn't have a house, right? Usually the one that has the least amount of resources. And that's what happens in communities when there aren't enough homes, when there's not enough housing for everyone. Everybody continues to compete. People move in and out. The music keeps playing and the music keeps stopping and the rent goes up and up and up. And those with the resources secure the housing. And those without, others, maybe those that have resources but not enough, oftentimes our neighbors, our teachers, our healthcare workers, our farm workers, they are the ones that are left without a place to call home. Our scripture this morning reminds us that in God's house there are many dwelling places. Many dwelling places. As Phil mentioned, this is a familiar scripture to many. Anybody know this one? It's often used as words of comfort at funerals and at memorials. I used this verse at my own grandfather's service a few years back. But today, I want us to consider how this passage might offer comfort to those who are grieving a different kind of loss. Maybe it's the loss of a job, a house, a relationship, an apartment. All the things that might impact how we can call a place home. When this passage was written for the early Johannine church, they were questioning what it meant to be disciples of Jesus after his death, when he was no longer physically present. And they knew that this return that had been promised in other parts of the gospel wasn't imminent, because they'd been waiting a while, and he hadn't come back. So they had to have been wondering, how can we follow an absent Lord? Where is Jesus now? He said he would be with us. Where is Jesus now? When I ask myself that question, I have to imagine that Jesus is with those who don't have a place to call home. He's with those who spend over half their paycheck or most of their Social Security check on housing. He's with those who are worrying about how they will pay next month's rent or mortgage. That's where Jesus is. The Greek word for house in this passage is called oikos. Say that with me, oikos. It's kind of fun to say, right? And that is the same root of where we get the word economy, which is management of the house, or ecology, which is the study of the house. And it doesn't just mean a physical building. It means a household, a community, an environment, a shared home. You know, if God is creator and mother of us all, birthing new life every single day, then the oikos, the household of God, isn't just this future heavenly realm. It's the earth that we share. It's the neighborhoods that we build. It's the shelter that everyone deserves. It's bigger than one building. It's bigger than one person. It's all of it. All of it. Jesus is preparing a place for everyone here and now. That's part of what his ministry taught us. When Jesus says, in my house, in my Father's house, there are many dwelling places, he's shifting our emphasis from a future hope to this present experience. God's house with room for all. As a creation justice congregation, we understand that, right? We understand that our entire earth is God's house, and that we are charged with being good stewards of all who call our planet home, right? And we take that charge very seriously here at CCSM. But shouldn't that stewardship also mean ensuring that there are actual rooms for people here and now? Making sure that everyone feels that they have a place to belong and that they are part of this big community of God's house. If you don't have a place to call home, maybe some of you have lived that before, maybe you are experiencing it now, but I imagine that you start to ask these questions. Am I truly welcome here? Do I belong? Am I valued? Think about it. I think I'm welcome when I'm teaching your child or when I'm caring for your parents. but I can't find an affordable place to live. How does that make sense? Housing injustice in our community isn't just about those who are experiencing homelessness. It's about unstable housing as well. Worrying if you have enough money to cover rent. The inability to find a new place if you need to move. When I was moving here, I think I had 4 people looking for a place to help me live, maybe 5. Jim Granucci, Kibby, Austin, Holly Allen, my sister. And it pretty much took all 5 of those people to find a place. And I realized that that is privilege. Many people don't have individuals who can just drop things and go and help you find a home. Most of us have probably had unstable moments. I remember graduating from college on a Saturday and being the broke student that I was, started working on Monday with no place to live. And luckily, I had a friend who let me crash on their couch, and then I shared a studio apartment with my freshman year roommate for the rest of summer until we were able to find our own places in August. It was tight, but it was temporary. And we knew that it would be temporary. And it was a lot bigger than a dorm room, so we knew that we could do it. For decades, cities and neighborhoods across the country, including here in San Mateo, have said that there isn't room and that there aren't enough dwelling spaces for all, and that maybe there's just dwelling spaces for certain people, but not everyone. You've heard of the term redlining, right? Of neighborhoods. One of our country's ugly practices of racism that blocked Black households and other communities of color from accessing home mortgages, which has impacted home ownership for decades and neighborhoods, and it still does. You know, according to the National Institute of Health, historical redlining is linked to an increased risk of diabetes, hypertension, and early mortality due to heart disease. Housing injustice literally shortens lives, and it impacts every part of our whole being, body, mind, and spirit. Exposure to mold and poor air quality and overcrowding leads to chronic health problems. And the stress, chronic stress of being able to stay in your home erodes at your mental health. And for children that are in this constant state of worry, because you know that kids feel our stress, right? They feel it even if they can't talk about it. Or when they're moving from household to household, it really impacts education and development. I had a friend who taught in our hometown of Danville, Illinois, which is about 2 hours south of Chicago. And that is where families were sent to when they closed the public housing neighborhoods in Chicago. And so you had parents that had jobs in the city, and yet their home was 2 hours south. And they would pull their kids from school on Fridays and on Mondays so that they could work their jobs over the weekends. Housing isn't just about shelter. It's about health and dignity and life itself. Maria, a farm worker in Pescadero, said that stable housing for her means that she won't have to worry about losing her home if she's laid off again when the season changes. So let's go back to today's scripture for a minute. This passage in John comes right after Jesus washes the disciples' feet. And he gives them that new commandment to love one another. Jesus didn't talk about limiting housing or saying that it was only for certain people. He said, in my Father's house, there are many dwelling places. Many, I will say it again, many dwelling places. And we may not think that we do, but we have the ability and the tools and the resources to solve this problem. We do. I'm not an architect. You'll have to talk to Dawn about that. I'm not a city planner or a contractor, but I know that we know people who have the skills and the resources to build and to transform our current systems and our current structures into something that offers belonging and dwelling and healing for all. This is resurrection, right? And what have I been saying on Easter and throughout this Easter tide season? We are, join me, Easter people. We are Easter people. So what does this mean for housing? What ideas, what properties need new life? What needs transformation to help the entire community flourish? We're seeing signs of this transformation, and we have stories of hope that we can turn to. You know, right down the street, our neighbors at St. James AME Zion, they are using their land, just a small little portion of their land in our neighborhood, for a New Beginnings housing project. And this little village will consist of 264 square units. I know it's tiny, but it's a home. And those will be future homes for young adults who are aging out of the child care system. And those young adults are one of the highest groups who are at risk for homelessness. We've heard of Not in My Backyard, right? NIMBYs. There's also a counter movement called Yes in God's Backyard. And it is where congregations across the country are looking at how they can utilize their property and their spaces to create affordable housing for seniors, for young adults, for those who are transitioning into permanent housing, and for families of all sizes. Our sister congregation, First Church Berkeley, is committed to a new affordable housing project that will add low-income housing primarily for families to their campus. I believe over 40 units as early as 2027. And here on Tilton Avenue, what about that Mason building across the street? Could you imagine if people were able to pool together their resources and do a lot of renovation to make that building livable and accessible for homes, maybe social service offices, having a caseworker or 2 or 3 right here in our neighborhood? For several months, you've been hearing about the Our Home San Mateo campaign. And many of you have been part of that. And you've shown up at city council meetings or joined community conversations or spread information around our city. And that is what kingdom building looks like. That is how we take seriously Jesus' charge and invitation, and we join God in creating dwelling places for all of our neighbors. It's how we keep our neighbors in the dwelling places that they call home.